Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the members of the public. We welcome you to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. Today is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. We take note that a full complement of the board is present. The Chief Executive Officer, Interim County Counsel, Executive Officer, and the Sergeant at Arms are all here to assist. Before we begin, I would like to turn it over to Supervisor Solis to lead us in a moment of silence for the victims of Monterey Park mass shooting, and also for her to welcome Erica Moritsugu, Deputy Assistant to President Biden. And we also have some guests with us today.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm really, really thankful that you're allowing us to do this at this time. It has been just a tremendous weekend for all of us here as we look at what happened in observation, not just what occurred at Monterey Park, but also in the Half Moon Bay area where there were other lives that were taken. So I would ask for a moment of silence at this time in their honor and memory of those individuals that lost their lives, actually in Monterey Park in our district. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a few statements, if I might, Madam Chair. As we all know, Lunar New Year is one of the most well-known celebrations in the AAPI community. And it is a time for renewal, for resilience, and we know we just actually had a proclamation passed last week to honor this celebration that happens for the next 22 days, I believe, in all of our counties. But today we want to shed light on those individuals that were impacted. Wanted to express my heartfelt, along with all the board members here, those individuals that we just prayed in silence for, and to first list their names, if I might. So we know Mi Nang, 65, Lillian Lee, 63, Cho Huang, 57, Li Ang, 67, Jen John, 62, Diana Tom, 70, Cao, 72, Chia Yao, 76, Valentino Alvaro, 68, Wen Yu, 64, Ning Ma, 72. We pray for them and their families and those individuals that still remain in our hospitals and in our care. I also, at this time, Madam Chair, would like to recognize the fact that work very closely with the city of Monterey Park, and we have our elected officials that are also here. I want to recognize them, the mayor, Henry Lowe, council member Thomas Wong, council member Zheng Nao, Alhambra Mayor Adele Andrade Stadler, Councilmember Jeff Maloney, Councilmember Sasha Perez, Renee Perez. And with us today also our OEM Director, Kevin Gowan. We also have Lisa Wong, our Director of Mental Health. Also have Coroner Examiner and a representative from the County of Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. I want to thank all of them. And I also wanted to take this moment to welcome Erica Moritsugi, Deputy Assistant to the President of the United States, and AA and NHPI Senior Liaison for the Office of the President of the Chief of Staff. So she is here also to give us some comments.
So much, Madam Supervisor, and mayors and council members and board members and supervisors and members of the community for sharing this sacred space. I'm honored to be here with you for this moment, this space, this shared space, to come together as community. I'm here to represent the President, who cares about our community, the AN and HPI community and the local community, and conveys his and Dr. Biden's deepest condolences, thoughts and prayers, absolutely, but also listening and learning from the local community.
Mayors and council members and board members and supervisors and members of the community for sharing this sacred space. I'm honored to be here with you for this moment, in this space, this shared space, to come together as community. I'm here to represent the President, who cares about our community, the AN and HPI community and the local communities here in San Gabriel County, and conveys his and Dr. Biden's deepest condolences, thoughts and prayers, absolutely, but also listening and learning from the local community and the community leaders who are also members of the local community so that we can put it into action and to understand the needs and respond to them. I can't imagine how excruciating it must be, how painful and heartful this must be for those of you who have lost friends and neighbors and aunties and uncles and grandmas and just friends. I share my grief with you as we mourn the tragic death of our brothers and sisters. Please know that we're still aching with you and wanting to stride forward as the recovery process is underway and must continue. It's horrible that this occurred during a time of celebration of the Lunar New Year. But let's remember that the Lunar New Year is a time that's supposed to bring hope. And let's absorb and hold that hope and know that our community is resilient and stronger together, which is one of the reasons why I'm so grateful to be here together with you. Thank you very much.
Yes, we'd like to have Mayor Henry Lau and also Adele Stadler representing the mayor of Hahn to say a few words.
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you, Board of Supervisors, and everyone here today. The last few days have been trying and challenging times for our community in both Monterey Park and Alhambra, and I know we're all still trying to understand what occurred. Many of us are still in disbelief that this could occur here, but you know, when people ask me about how we overcome this, and the answer is here, all of us. You know, it's important to remind all those who are hurting, whether immediately if they're a victim or victim's family or just the community, that we're not alone. No one is alone, and we are just one human family, and let's remember that. And you know, there'll be, of course, a long road of recovery, but we know that we won't be doing this alone. And we just thank everyone for your sincere condolences and heartfelt support. Thank you so much.
On behalf of the City Council and all the residents of Alhambra, the leadership, the community-based organizations, all of us are here together to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters from Monterey Park. We are not far. We are so connected in so many ways. And so we too will stand by, ready to do whatever it is we need to do to help our community understand what is going on and begin to heal in their native languages. It's very important that we reach out to them in their Spanish and Chinese languages so that they understand exactly what is occurring and that we're here and we stand by. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one final note. Some of the heroes, you're hearing about them in the news now. The young man who actually helped to prevent more senseless shootings at Alhambra. And Alhambra has been suffering as well. And they're alongside with us, as well as the Monterey Park Police Department. Some of the 3 first deputies that went in were new, and they were women. And so let us not forget about those individuals that put their life at risk as well. And whenever they're called, they don't turn back. So let's think about all of them. And thank you all. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I thank the audience for this time to reflect. Thank you.
Thank you. And may I just say on behalf of the County of Los Angeles, we are all in mourning. Supervisor Solis, your colleagues are in solidarity with you. And we know that we are offering, all the county resources that you need for your communities where this tragedy unfolded on Sunday. And may I say that watching you, it's very difficult, right? We all sort of woke up with the news, but you were also thrust in the spotlight and you handled it with such grace and dignity. And we appreciate it. And to Erica, please thank President Biden for his well wishes, for the way he reached out, and I believe he called you, Supervisor Solis. Please tell him thank you, and we're happy that you could come to our board meeting. And to all the elected officials and our county family, we stand with you, we mourn with you, and we did have all of our flags in LA County lowered to half staff in honor of those who lost their lives.
Can I ask the members to join us?
Yes. You can do whatever you want, Supervisor Solis.
We're starting.
It is going to be a long road, but I think it's important for us to reach out to everybody because it's impacting the community. So please know that. I'm one of the scientists that's going to be so we'll figure it out. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Good seeing you. Thank you for being here. thank you for your notice, and I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
I know it's tough. You've had a baptism of fire. I know, but you're standing up. You're doing it. Yeah, we will. Yeah. Right. Recap.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Solis, for organizing that moment so that we could, again, all show our support to your communities. We will now begin today's board meeting with the county's land acknowledgement, recognizing land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, the Tataviam, the Serrano, the Quiche, and the Chumash peoples. Play the video.
The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, the Tataviam, Serrano, Quiche, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians, Quiche Nation, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians.
And now the invocation will be led by Apostle Beverly Bam Crawford, the Bible Enrichment Fellowship International Church from the 2nd District, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Karen Kraft, United States Army.
Well, good morning, everyone, and blessings and grace and peace to the city of Los Angeles. I've lived here all my life, and there's no better place to live. I am so thankful, as I know you are as well, to be alive today and all that we've come through in the last few years, but in particularly what our city is going through right now. The blessings to all the Board of Supervisors that are elected and appointed officials, and all the leaders that make this city work. Everyone that works together, embodying their hearts and their understanding, their intellect, their knowledge, and their experience together, so that we as citizens and as clergy and as people of diverse backgrounds can come together and to live the kind of life that we all want, not just for ourselves, but for one another. As a leader for 50 years or so, I've learned, even as a parent, that some things are non-negotiable. There are some things that we just do not bend. But there is a law of flexibility, and that's what I believe was placed in my heart this morning for this meeting. The law and love of flexibility. Flexibility doesn't mean compromising your values, but it does mean sometimes you have to bend a little. And sometimes you have to take a little, and then we all can't have our way all the time. That is evident by what we see happening here in the city of Los Angeles with our diverse understanding and backgrounds. As a pastor for 50 years, I've learned the meaning of inspiration and mobilization and helping people to move forward. I commend the Board of Supervisors over the years. I've been here before, but every time I come, the prayer for each one and your families is just the honor of integrity and character that you bring to such an office as this. I would be remiss if I did not recognize that they're all women. And so I'd like to say to the women, hats off, okay? That's a great thing. But I believe they were able to communicate and think and negotiate with the flexibility and mindset that is the best that we believe for everyone that is involved. And it's our intent and my intent as a citizen of the city of Los Angeles to add this prayer to the prayers that have already been prayed by so many, as we understand that God has by one blood made all men for to dwell on the face of the earth. And he has already established our bounds and the bounds of our habitation. And so, Father, we thank you and we honor you for the riches of your grace and the power of intellect and wisdom that we see here today. We see, Father, and we decree cooperation and understanding. We see and we encourage every single supervisor and their staff and their teams and everyone that is working here today to make sure that the people that are here are heard with the spirit of hearing and understanding, that our ears to be circumcised to the point that we would understand what another person means from their heart, not just from their words. That we would be tolerant and patient with one another and show a sense of kindness that you don't always see when there are opposing views. We set aside our opposing views and we find a place where we can agree. As we find a place to agree, then we begin to learn and embrace the things that are important to everybody. I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for this privilege. But most of all, I thank you for the city of Los Angeles, and I thank you for the power of your spirit working in your people today. Every single district to be covered, every single district to maintain a burning passion for those that need us the most, the children and the homeless and the mentally ill, that we would not be negligent in our duty and responsibility to care for the poor, but likewise that we would do those things we know that are fulfilling, and we would always have a conscience that is void of offense before God and before man. And so, Father God, we honor you. We thank you. We bless you for the participants that are in the audience today. We thank you that there is a door of utterance that is open, that they may speak. But most of all, we thank you for the wisdom and the grace of flexibility and love that is coming from this dynamic board of supervisors. For that, we honor you. We thank you for health and life, and we give you the thanksgiving and praise that our character will stand and our integrity shall never fail. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. And may I ask the audience if you're able to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance?
Please place your hand over your heart.
Bible Enrichment Fellowship Church International, where she has served for, can I say 33 years out loud? 35 years, and has built a congregation upwards of 2,000 members. Apostle Crawford has become one of the most requested African American female pastors in the nation's evangelistic community. In 1980, she became the first woman ordained and licensed by Dr. Fred Price. She served at the Crenshaw Christian Center for a decade before leaving to start her own ministry. She is a chancellor and professor at Bible Enrichment School of Theology, where she provides classes and certification to aspiring faith leaders, preparing them to be strong, committed, and effective. She's the author of nearly a dozen books. Apostle Crawford, we thank you for your leadership to the residents of the 2nd District, but to all of LA County, and for giving this morning's timely, heartfelt invocation. Thank you for joining us at the board meeting. Thank you.
I'm going to start with Louie, a 4-month-old male carrier, and came in the spring, but is incredibly friendly. This is Louie, and Louie, oh, Louie, yes. So, Louie is looking for a forever home, and Louie, sweet.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're now moving to a presentation. Supervisor Barger has some little friends that she wants to present. Very special little friends.
I'm gonna start with Boomy, a 4-month-old male terrier, and came in as a stray, but is incredibly friendly and a little confused. But this is Boomy, and Boomy, oh, Boomy, yes. So Boomy is looking for a forever home, and really sweet temperament. And it's
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Today's agenda will begin on page 2, Consent Calendar, Board of Supervisors, items 1 through 17. On item 1, the appointment of Kachana Tate is a nomination by the Director of Mental Health instead of First 5 LA. Also on this item, this includes an addition as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 2, Supervisor Horvath requests that this item be held. On item 3, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 7, Supervisor Barger requests that this item be held. Also, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 9, Supervisor Solis requests that this item be held. On item 12, Supervisor Mitchell requests that this item be held. Also, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 13, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 14, Supervisor Mitchell requests that this item be continued 2 weeks to February 7th, 2023. On page 18, Administrative Matters, items 18 through 43. On item 18, the Chief Executive Officer requests that this item be continued to March 21st, 2023. On item 27, Supervisor Barger requests that this item be held. On item 28, the Director of Public Health requests that this item be continued 2 weeks to February 7th, 2023. On item 31, the Chief Probation Officer requests that this item be continued to February 28th, 2023. On item 32, the Chief Probation Officer requests that this item be referred back to his department. On page 32, this includes miscellaneous additions to the agenda, which were posted more than 72 hours in advance of the meeting, as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On item 41A, Supervisor Horvath requests that this item be held. On item 41C, Supervisor Barger and Supervisor Mitchell would like to revise their joint motion to remove the Department of Public Social Services from the directive. On item 41D, Supervisor Barger requests that this item be held. On page 33, ordinance for introductions 44 and 45. On page 34, special district agenda. This is the agenda for the Los Angeles County Development Authority. On item 2D is an addition as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On page 35, notices for closed session. On item CS1, this includes a revision as indicated on the supplemental agenda. On page 38, items continue from previous meetings for further discussion and action by the board. Item A4 is a discussion and consideration of necessary actions related to the county's homeless crisis. On item A4, Supervisor Horvath requests that this item be held. The requests for continuances and refer back through A4 are before you.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Solis, seconded by Supervisor Horvath to approve these items, and that will be the order.
That completes the reading of the agenda, Madam Chair.
Members of the public, a matter that needs to be discussed in closed session at this time has come to our attention. We will return to open session as soon as possible. At that time, we will begin with 41A, then followed by items A4, 2, 7, 9, and 12, and ending with items 27 and 41D that will be taken up together, which were held by supervisors, and ending with the remaining items not held by the board and general public comment. Before going into closed session, Executive Officer, please call those members of the public who wish to speak on item CS2, Department Head Performance Evaluation.
For members of the public wishing to participate remotely, as indicated on the agenda, please call 877-226-8163 and use participant code number 1336503. For those who wish to address item CS2, Department Head Performance Evaluation, please press 1 then 0 at this time. You will have the opportunity to address the board on all other agenda and closed session items later in the meeting. We will begin by calling in-person speakers on CS2, Department Head Performance Evaluation, and while they're coming forward, we will take public telephonic speakers.
Will Herman, Mike Greenspan, and Red Chief Hunt please come forward and staff will assist you. Moderator, may we have the first remote speaker, please?
Our first participant is Lily Dorn. You may begin. Lily Dorn, you may begin.
Next speaker, please.
Madam Chair, there are no additional speakers in queue to address the board.
Okay. Did we lose Lily? Was that call got
Still
dropped?
queued up. Ms. Dorn, if you can check your mute button, make sure you're not muted.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was double muted there. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Lily Dorn, and I am providing general public comment and speaking in support of item 9 on the agenda today.
Lily, this is not the time for general public comment or on that item. That will be later in the agenda. This is just on closed session department head evaluation. So you'll have to stay on and come back when we're doing general public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Mike Greenspan, the Jew who won't go back to Florida, you anti-Semitic, anti-Christ Catholics. Now, there's something that I do have to talk about. Conference with labor negotiators. Some of my favorite unions are here.
That's also not, that's not what we're doing right now. This is just CS2, public department head evaluation. You'll have an opportunity to speak on that later, Mike.
Okay.
Okay.
Emergency Services Representative. Gee whiz.
No.
We have to have more people working for the sheriffs. Don't we have enough?
No, that's not it either.
That's on CS. Oh, excuse me. My bad.
CS2.
Okay. Oh, legal counsel. Yes, more attorneys. I should go to court and see some of these cases. They should be interesting. How much are we paying these overpriced attorneys?
Okay, that's also not CS2. Well, keep going. I mean, you might hit it. You might hit it finally.
Well, you said CS. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Wait.
Your time is up. Okay. Your time is up, Mike. You can come back though and speak later.
So how do we negotiate labor negotiations? Well, we definitely don't want to bring
we're not talking about
this
labor
political arena under CS2.
No, not labor negotiations.
Yeah, we're talking about conference with negotiations, CS2.
No, department head evaluation.
Please look at 35A, page 35A.
Well, fuck the department head. I'm on page 51. It says CS2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation.
That was last week's agenda.
Well,
page 35A.
You provided me with this fucking agenda this morning, and it's not up to date.
All right.
I got 20 seconds.
Okay.
If you're gonna provide me with information, you provide it to the time that it's presented now, not later, because it sounds kind of stupid, ignorant, and some idiot attorney sits there and doesn't want to explain.
Hold on. Is that the right agenda that we are providing people with?
It is.
Then what seems to be the confusion?
Supervisor,
yes.
On page 42.
Yes.
On page 42, it lists last week's January 17th closed session with no reportable action that we placed on the agenda.
I see. It's just reporting what we did last week.
Correct.
Okay, so your time's up. When you come back another time, you can
I had
speak.
9 seconds, Mommy. Janet, what's wrong with you?
Thank you very much. Are there other members in the public?
Then I'm submitting this into the record, and I want it to be
fine.
put
Thank
on
you.
this item regarding that jackass Jose Huizar.
Thank you. Chief Red Hunt.
Chief Hunt, thank you, Madam Chair. The evaluations are so important. We've seen it with the probation officer when he came and didn't know what de-escalation means. So I'm all in favor. I think we need to do more evaluations on the department heads I totally agree in closed sessions. I hope you guys get something accomplished. Red Chief Hahn.
Thank you. Are there other speakers in the room? No?
No other speakers.
Okay, is there any other speakers on the phone? Okay, at that time, Executive Officer, please read us into closed session.
In accordance with Rent Act requirements, notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors will convene in closed session to discuss item CS2, Department Head Performance Evaluation. Thank you.
We will now begin with 7, items 9, and 12. Then items 27 and 41D, which will be taken up together. Then items 27 and 41D, which will be taken up together with 41A. And ending and the remaining items not held by the board and general public comment. And the remaining items not held by the board and general public comment. Yes, we get that right? We will begin with item A4.
Supervisor, before we start, can I play the code of conduct and read the...
Well, I was just going to, Supervisor Solis wanted me to repeat
Can I
it.
play the code of conduct
So I'll see
and
if I can
read
repeat it in the
the...
same order. I was just going to, Supervisor Solis wanted me to repeat it. So I'll see if I can repeat it in the same order. 2, so we'll be 7, 9, and 12. A4. Then 27 and 41D, which will be taken up together. Then and 27 and 41D, which will be taken up together. And the remaining items not held by the board and 41A.
And Madam, I lifted the...
And the remaining items not held by the board and general plan.
And Madam, I...
Right, thank you. Okay, now, Executive Officer, please play the code of conduct before we begin with our held items. Executive Officer, please read the call-in information that was also provided on the agenda and explain the speaking rules. And read the call-in information that was also provided on the agenda.
May I please have your attention?
The speaking rules.
The meeting of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors is about to commence. The meeting of the Los Angeles will now be read, and we request that you comply with it to ensure the efficient administration of the meeting. Request that you comply members of the public to ensure the efficient. It is your right to participate in today's board hearing. Members of the board encourages such participation. It is your right to participate. And the board address the board must be balanced with the need to ensure the right of the comment does not interfere with the orderly course of the board's business. Public comment does not are reminded to abide by the following board's business. Speakers must cease speaking immediately when their time has ended. Public comment on agenda items must relate to the subject matter of that item. Public comment on agenda items. General public comment is limited to subjects within the jurisdiction of the board. General public comment does not include the right to engage in a dialogue with board members or staff. Does not include the right to remain respectful of the forum and refrain from uttering, writing, or displaying profane, personal, threatening, derogatory, or displaying, or other abusive statements toward the board, any member thereof, or other abusive statements, or any other person. Any member thereof. Members of the audience should be respectful of any other expressed by speakers, staff, members of the audience should be and may not clap, views expressed cheer, by speakers, whistle, or otherwise disrupt the orderly conduct of the meeting. Cheer, any person engaging in conduct that disrupts the meeting is subject to being removed from the board. Any person engaging in conduct that disrupts the meeting, if you witness conduct or behavior by other members of the public that disrupts your ability to remain engaged or participate by other members of the public, please notify a sergeant-at-arms or other participant in this meeting. Thank you for your cooperation. Sergeant-at-arms or
Now
other
I will
county
read
staff.
in the call-in information for members of the public wishing to participate remotely, as indicated on the agenda. Please call 877-226, as indicated on the agenda. Please call participant code number 216-816-6503. Members of the public participating remotely and in the boardroom will have the opportunity to address the board throughout the meeting. You will receive 1 minute to address the board on items held by the supervisors and up to a total of 3 minutes on all remaining items in general public comment. For a total of 6 minutes for this meeting. Please monitor your time and the items you are signing up for, as your name will not be called once and the items you are signing up for. As for members of the public joining us remotely, when the board moves to the item you wish to address, joining us remotely, please press when the board moves and then 0 to be entered into the speaking queue. Please remember to turn down the volume on your devices as soon as the moderator calls on you, or there will be an echo. Down the volume on your devices. You will need to press 1, then 0 for each item on which you would like to speak on. To ensure we hear from both in-person telephonic speakers, we will alternate between the two speaking queues. Members of the public who are in attendance, when you hear or see your name displayed on the screen, members of the public who are in attendance.
Item. We will first hear from Fugia Davenport, and then, or Supervisor Horvath, would you like to kick it off? Okay, and then we'll go to you for first comment.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is an update on where we are on the declaration of emergency regarding homelessness. So on January 10th, your board adopted a motion proclaiming a declaration of emergency related to homelessness. That motion had a number of directives in it, and one of the directives instructed my office to come back in 14 days to identify the authorities that were needed to help county departments basically move faster in doing all the things that need to be done to service people experiencing homelessness. Essentially, the motion directed us to identify what are the specific authorities in our county rules, in our ordinances, to help us contract faster, hire faster, spend down dollars faster, and provide services faster. So we issued our report very late yesterday. But I wanted to give you a highlight of what's in that report today, and we will also individually walk your offices through the contents of that report. Just in terms of setting the context of the work the report actually sets out the context of all the work that has been done to date, and it also provides some statistical information regarding our unsheltered homeless population. We have identified and are proposing for this emergency 3 missions. The first mission is encampment resolution, which I'll talk about more later. The second relates to housing, and then the third mission relates to mental health.
I wanted to give you a highlight your office in that.
On the encampment resolution mission, the goal here is to work closer with our cities and our councils of government to develop what we're calling hyper-local plans to engage in encampment resolution. What does that mean? What it means is that we want to work closer to enhance. You are in queue. Work with cities so that we can identify a problem, or who often can identify what their issues are, but may not have a very good sense of what can be done to address the encampment in their local areas, or what resources are available to help them do it. So we want to be a thought partner with them. Provide some resources, including funding, a limited amount of funding to make that happen. The Homeless Initiative is not currently staffed or structured to engage in that work at scale across the county, and so in our next report that is due on next Tuesday, we'll come back to your board with a staffing plan on how we can staff up the Homeless Initiative to actually double down on encampment resolution with all of our cities. The second mission is the housing mission. The goal here is to continue to increase housing, both interim and permanent housing. We know that the county needs to streamline its internal processes, eliminate unnecessary levels of review that don't add value to the process. And although this mission is far more complex, in a nutshell, we want to work with cities who want to partner. We provide the services. We need the cities to identify housing sites and locations where we can stand up housing or shelters. The third mission I referred to is mental health and substance use services. Here, the goal is to provide field-based mental health and substance use disorder assessments with outreach workers and interim housing providers so that assessments can be made in real time or near real time at the point of contact. We know that there is a shortage of mental health providers doing this work, so we need to incentivize this work We need to help our mental health department hire faster in order to meet this mission. So those are the three missions included in our report. We also are recommending and intend to take what we're calling a whole of county approach. And so what does that mean? What that means is, to the extent that we are legally able to do so, we propose that our health and safety net departments prioritize services for unsheltered persons experiencing homelessness. Specifically, we propose that under the declaration of emergency, with all things being equal between two constituents seeking services, and if legally permissible to do so, that county health and social safety net departments prioritize the person experiencing homelessness, unless doing so would exacerbate our homelessness problem in the county or jeopardize the life or health of others. We have also included in our report our communication plan. So this work has already started pursuant to a prior motion on the Blue Ribbon Commission on Homelessness, where we are more proactively engaging with our cities, our councils of government. So we want to leverage that work. We want to make sure that our cities know what the plan is. We want to make sure that they understand what their role is in that plan, roles and responsibilities. And then we also want to identify where the opportunities are for us to collaborate. So, so the report also includes an attachment. It's about 7 pages long with the recommended authorities and the changes to county ordinance that we need in order to implement the emergency declaration. We are calling those first wave solutions, because as we work with the county departments over the last 10 days or so, we have a plethora of recommendations, and we can't do everything at once. Otherwise, we will dilute our strength. And so we are identifying these as the essential first wave authorities that we need to move forward, but we will continue to work through and vet the others as we move along in the process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Horvath.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam CEO. I want to thank you and all of the relevant staff who are involved in the state of emergency action, and thank you for staying on your proposed schedule, meeting the 14-day reporting timeline, and for keeping us up to date. I know we all just got your update later yesterday, and with the sizable agenda we have today, I thought maybe it would be helpful for all of us to have time to digest not only what you sent us, but what you shared here with us today. I know that you will need us to take action to move forward what you are requesting, but I also understand next Tuesday there will be another update, so perhaps we could hold that action to next Tuesday, do something in open session before we go into closed session next Tuesday, so we all have the benefit of digesting what you've shared with us last night and today. Is that okay with my colleagues? Yes? Thank you.
Thank you, and just want to say thank you, Fisa, for that update. I know I speak for my colleagues. We want to make sure that you and your team have all the tools that you need to be successful as we address this crisis. It's only been 2 weeks since we declared our state of emergency on homelessness, and already much has happened. Yesterday, I joined Mayor Bass and Supervisor Horvath and members of the LASA Commission in announcing the new executive director of LASA, Dr. Felicia Adams-Kellum. And it does feel like, for the first time in a long time, the city and the county are working together. I know we have several lawsuits out there that are trying to make us work together, but this actually feels different, that we have new leadership and a new spirit of can-do when it comes to addressing this crisis. And I think seeing how closely, Cynthia, you are working with the city is, I think, the only way that it's going to really begin to make a difference. and we're going to be, as you said, marshaling resources, bringing down barriers, and a lot of that has to do with, I think, being able to hire quickly, contract quickly, so that we can, make sure that those who are sleeping on our streets can come inside. So with the recommendations listed in this report, again, we look forward to contracting faster, hiring faster, and making housing available faster. Thank you. Any of my colleagues want to speak on that one? Okay. Executive Officer, please call the members of the public that have signed up to speak on this item.
Will Gregory Esri, Herman, Mike Greenspan, Patricia McAllister, and Red Chief please come forward and staff will assist you. Moderator, may we have the first remote speaker, please?
Our first participant is Connie Ho. You may begin.
And I would like to just say that I understand that homelessness is a severe problem in all of Los Angeles County, but making landlords house people for free is not the answer. You're only going to make the homelessness problem worse, because then people like me, small landlords, are going to just take their properties off their market and take their business elsewhere. We can't support another person. We have bills to pay just like you do. Let me put it in a way that you would understand as an Angelino. All the credits that roll at the end of a movie? Well, that's how many people it takes to provide housing. You have people in all the trades, and then all the people to finance it, and all the people to do work and pay for the utilities. And when someone just comes by and says that they can't pay just because of COVID or whatever excuse they have, it shouldn't be the burden of the landlord to provide it for free. You need to provide an answer to...
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to make sure everybody, I feel like you might have been talking on 41A. So we're on A4, the discussion and consideration of necessary actions relating to the county's homeless crisis. 41A about tenant protections is later in the agenda. So just going to make that clear. All right, next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Roy. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. And something that the board has failed to address, and I did with Supervisor Solis's representative, and that is the transients. You break this categories down. They're homeless because that's their lifestyle. And what do you do with those? And what about those who refuse to take aid from the county? And so what is the disposition on those? That's a critical issue, and there's a large portion of it we found out in Roland Heights and the community meeting there. You failed to address that in this quote homeless situation to break it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Genevieve Clavriol. Please, you may begin.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Did we lose that last caller?
Genevieve, do you want to make the link?
Yes. Anyway, I am very glad to hear that last time had a new director, but things are not going to change. And it should have been better to have had a consultant to clean the house first, because no matter what that new director is going to do, it's not going to be successful. But I am hoping that things will change, and we need to have a big change. But thank you for your motion. Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Genevieve. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Hector Ramirez. You may begin.
Buenos dias. My name is Hector Ramirez. I'm a consumer of Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health,
and a resident of Chapters. I really want to applaud the board in this particular motion in partnering with the city and the mayor. Los Angeles County has the largest population of people with disabilities in the country, and you'll find my peers either in jails or unhoused on the streets, many of which are really struggling to access appropriate mental health services that are both trauma-informed and culturally responsive. And so I really applaud the motion. But again, as a consumer, I really want to caution the county to really not make any decisions that will negatively impact the health of me and my peers who have been getting services or have struggled to get services in my clinic. We haven't been able to get many of our consumer psychiatric services for our Latino community because we have a significant shortage of Spanish psychiatrists. Similarly, our deaf and hard of hearing haven't been able to get appropriate services for the past 4 years because of a lack of sign language interpreters and providers that are ASL or deaf or hard of hearing. Similarly, our LGBTQ ASL community has been in significant crisis because of a lack of services from the Department of Mental Health. So really, I want to also just highlight that we're also dealing with significant mental health crisis for our youth and children. So as you really go on into this task, to really be cautious both of the state and federal mandates.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Ricardo Pimienta. You may begin.
I'm sorry, I'm calling in for the eviction stop moratorium. I'm opposed to that, but I'm on the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, you're, just hang on and we'll get to you later in the meeting. Thank you. Next speaker on A4.
Our next participant is the Guss report. You may go ahead. Please begin.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, hi.
Yes,
Daniel Guss.substack.com. The most read column of the year was about 3 deaths on one block in Sherman Oaks. And the city, Nithya Raman's spokesperson, emailed me yesterday blaming this on the county. She said the county doesn't have enough funds for this. Are you kidding me? You had tens of or hundreds of millions or tens of billions of dollars. So why does the city of Los Angeles Council District 4 claim that the city is not getting enough resources from the county? On Sunday, after I reported about 3 deaths on a single block on Van Nuys between Ventura and Moore Park in Sherman Oaks, there was a guy on the roof of the gas station at the corner making death threats, requiring the whole corner to be shut down, a huge response from the LAPD and LAFD. I guess the question is, why does the city blame the county? Why does the county blame the city?
Thank you.
And what's happening to my district?
Thank you for calling in. Next speak. Oh, now we're coming in person. Hello. Good morning.
It's Craig Estrie. God sent me here to tell you there's only one solution to the homeless. It's urban campgrounds. It's the only solution. You can't, like a famous politician said, the homeless are too valuable of a commodity to house. You guys stop kind of using the homeless, put them in, build campgrounds like they got in Arizona, let them sleep, shit, in a place that's safe. And then put wraparound services right there. This is the only answer. Taxing everybody is not the answer. Get some land to contractors. Let them build it cheap and build grounds. Look at Arizona, Boise. That's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Mike.
Mike Greenspan, the Jew who won't go back to Florida, and I'm staying out here, and I won't be homeless. Now, a couple things. I look around, I see apartments being built. What kind of apartments? Luxury apartments. Who on the street's going to go from a tent to a luxury apartment? I just don't get it. Now, we used to have those red, white, and blue federal HUD housing signs. I haven't seen a one around here. Back 10, 12 years ago, it was easy to get senior housing through. Just rubber stamp it. Well, now it's luxury apartments. And there's this big old building. It's over there on 1st Street and Grand. And I was driving someone around and I know that that's not housing for the homeless. Yeah, you guys are using the homeless issue as a cash cow. true, because that's all you're doing is using them. I said if that thing is housing for the homeless, I'll go suck Bobble's dick.
Okay, next speaker, please.
Yeah, well, in this crisis, I don't plan to suck any dick, because in the United States versus Baghdadarian, Obama fucked us for 4 years, and the crisis never stopped. The crisis never ends. And we got that dumb 46th president offering you guys more cash like a big cow. And what are you doing? You're picking leaves off the tree like it exists as money. And it's right. They don't care about any one of you. In 3 months, some of you are going to be living on the street. Blame it on HHH Measure H. Because in the United States versus Baghdadarian, Obama fucked us for 4 years. And the crisis never stopped. And the crisis never ends. And we got that dumb 46th president offering you guys more cash like a big cow. And what are you doing? You're picking leaves off the tree like it exists as money. And it's right. They don't care about any one of you. They don't care about any one. 3 months, some of you going to be living in the 3 months, some of you going to be living. Blame it on HHH Measure H. Blame it on this council. Blame it on this council. United States versus Baghdadarian for the record. Miss Attorney, don't take my content. Don't take my place. 42 USC 1983. Let's say.
To give you compliments. We want our time here. The money we want it spent on my people, black people, okay? We built this nation. You foreigners need to go home, all right? And I want my people off of Skid Row. And that's your job, young lady. You came to my church when you were running. And I said, if you didn't do your job to help your black people, every time you come to this meeting, you should go and say the word, my people, black people, Ms. Mitchell.
Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please. And we're asking everybody in the audience to refrain from clapping. If you agree with the speaker, you can just raise your hand, and we can see that. Okay, Red Chief Hunt.
Yes, the Red Chief Hunt. I've been through 3 of these programs, and we always seem to get the statistics right, but not religious. That's a major problem. Problem is that the FMR rates are way too low. $1,800 for a $2,500 apartment, it doesn't match. For 20 years we've been going through this. 20 whole years we've been going through this homeless crisis. Nobody, the rocket scientists, can figure it out. I figured it out. Either we're going to have to claim eminent domain on 1/3 of all the new structures, or raise the FMR rate to $2,450 so that people can live. Now, the people that can't live in the community, like you said, they need some caps. I totally agree with that. A lot of people can't live in 4 walls, but we need to raise the FMR rate. I've been through 3 programs. You know, a lot of them programs are not legitimate. They say services, but not.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Rafael Roblero.
Good morning, my name is Rafael Roblero.
Yo vengo a hablar por las enfermedades mentales y las crisis de la calle.
I'm here to speak on mental health as well as the street crisis.
¿Cómo piensan arreglar lo de los homeless cuando la mayoría de ellos tienen enfermedades mentales? En mi caso personal, yo tengo un hijo con una enfermedad mental. Cuando yo llamo a Access, a veces toma hasta 8 horas, hasta días en responder una crisis. Que una enfermedad es la que los lleva a ellos a terminar en las calles y en adicciones.
I would like to know how you're going to fix the issue with the homelessness and also mental illness. As for me, I have a personal story. I have a son with mental illness, and every time I call Access, it takes about 8 hours to a day to receive anything, and where this mental illness can also affect them, and they can become homeless.
Sí existen los programas y los recursos, pero yo siento que no están funcionando.
The programs do exist and the resources as well, but I feel that they're not being effective.
Y no creo que sea justo que ellos terminen en la cárcel por tener una enfermedad mental.
And I don't think it's fair that they end up in jail for having a mental illness.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Oh, no. Okay, seeing that there are no other comments, either in person or on the phone, item A4 is a receive and file, and hearing no objections, that will be the order. We will now move to item 2, response to increase in anti-Semitic incidents, which was held by Supervisor Horvath. For members of the public on the cell phone, please press 1, then 0 now.
Of the work of the board and people truly understanding what it is that is done at the County Board of Supervisors. Often people don't understand our role as supervisors because they don't understand the work or have insight into the work that is done by this board and this body. And I had one community group specifically ask, how does a motion become a motion? How does the work of the body get considered? What is that process, and at what point can we join in that process? And so this opportunity to increase transparency and the ability of our public to engage in the process along the way, I think will be helpful to all of us going forward. We've also heard calls for equitable representation and good governance overall. We know that there's a redistricting process that happens to consider that in part, but this effort will also increase our ability to understand other opportunities for more equitable representation. And I know that that's something that I've heard pretty consistently, and so that is another part of the why for me, as well as increasing efficiencies and clarity of communication for everyone inside the county family as we do our work together. So those are my whys, and now to focus on the hows. There are 4 requests of this motion. The first 3 actions all involve the same request. So the first request includes creation of a new independent includes, let me clarify, the development of an independent third-party study, which would look at the following: creation of a new independent office of the chief analyst, similar to other jurisdictions such as the City of Los Angeles, to provide separate review of key items before they're voted on by the board. Review of the current policy cluster system and budgeting processes. Development of a procedure for routine evaluation of the county code and county charter. Exploration of the implementation of priority recommendations from the County Citizens Redistricting Commission's final report. And review of potential changes to the structure of the board, including its expansion. This is something that I've heard pretty consistently discussed, and I think that an evaluation of that possibility is worthy of our exploration and discussion. The second request involves enhancing public participation by examining legislative opportunities to make remote public comment permanent, as well as virtual advisory board and commission meetings accessible to the public. The third request asks County Council to report back in 90 days with recommendations on various campaign finance reforms, including adjusting campaign contribution limits, creating a matching funds program at the county, and establishing fully publicly financed elections. Once again, these are not changes that would be implemented in 90 days, but rather explored and reported back. And I know, once again, these are calls that we have heard pretty consistently from the public. The final request of this item today is for County Council and the Executive Officer to report back in writing in 60 days with a review, analysis, and recommendations to clarify the express roles and responsibilities of our county leadership, including during a declared local emergency. These items are designed to look at the way we do the business of the county, if there are more efficient, transparent, and responsive ways of doing so. And I invite my colleagues to consider any and all of these suggested requests, as well as those they each believe will help improve our work together, the accessibility of our work to the public, and the equitable representation and leadership I know we all strive for as board members. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other my colleagues want to discuss this. Are there members of the public that have signed in on this?
Well, you were in queue. Brett Sutton, Mike Greenspan, Patricia McAllister, and Red Chifa, please come forward and staff will assist you. Moderator, may we have the first remote speaker, please?
Our first participant is Gilberto Gonzales. You may begin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the time, and thank you to Supervisors Mitchell and Horvath for introducing this motion. As you all know, the eyes of the world were on Los Angeles and the tragic and senseless killing in the Asian community in Monterey Park in particular. We know folks from around Southern California and throughout the U.S. know the diversity in Los Angeles County, but oftentimes other communities that may not have the numbers of the Mexican or Latino community or Chinese American community are often overlooked. So as you proceed with this motion and this initiative, we urge you, by the way, I should mention, I am the board chair of SAFE, an organization led by Hay Pinette as the CEO, as many of you know her personally. And so I'm submitting my comment in this capacity and urge you all to look more carefully at communities that are often overlooked as you proceed with this initiative. Thank you.
Next, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you.
Our next participant is David Lavis. You may begin.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is David Levitas, Executive Director of LA Forward. Speaking in favor of the motion, item 12, I appreciate the introduction of it by Supervisors Mitchell and Horvath. LA Forward is an organization that reaches over hundreds of thousands of people a year with our guides, civic engagement, and education. And we consistently hear, as we engage people across the county, that they want more transparency into understanding how local government works. And we feel like this particular motion, while not implementing any changes right away, would be a really solid step forward in studying potential changes that you've heard Supervisor Mitchell and Supervisor Horvath speak to. And so we are wholeheartedly in support of this motion, and it's very close in line with our goal of increasing the accessibility and accountability of local government, and would urge you all to support it. And thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Efrin Item. You may begin.
Thank you, Supervisors, for the opportunity to speak on item 12. Again, my name is Efrin Item. I'm with the California Community Foundation, where I serve as Vice President of Public Policy and Civic Engagement. And I want to applaud Supervisors Mitchell and Horvath for bringing this much-needed motion before you, and ask that you all consider support for this motion. Looking at the type of reforms and different processes that are being proposed in this motion would strongly increase not just the transparency with which the county operates, but also the accountability that it has to its voters and its residents. But most importantly, the greater opportunity for engagement. The county offers so much and has been such a tremendous leader during the pandemic and prior to that in meeting the needs of high-need communities. This motion helps us now explore how...
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Thank you. Your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Cindy Soto. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Cindy Soto. I'm a quadriplegic, and I live in District 4. I'm also the chair of the Personal Assistance Service Council for LA County, which is made up of over 50% of people with disabilities and are recipients of IHSS. I feel hopeful that the CEO can consider the importance of legislation such as AB 2449 and ask that you seek a amendment that would allow for more flexibility for commissions, boards, and the public to hold public meetings and to make public comments remotely. This is extremely important for those of us with disabilities and other underserved populations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Prince Asanwegi. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Prince Osunji. I reside in
Supervisor District 1. I'm calling to speak in support of item number 12. As a senior policy associate at Inclusive Action for the City, a Los Angeles-based CFI and policy research advocacy organization, our organization has learned from infield experience in directly servicing thousands of local small businesses, BIPOC, micro entrepreneurs, that it's important to take input from the community to drive our organizational practices. That being said, I support this motion because, inclusive feedback and implementation is essential to making sure that the LA County government could be more transparent, inclusive, and equitable in its processes. I'm confident this motion can pave the way to formalize and integrate more internal and external stakeholders to input policy development, budget prioritization, and internal department coordination.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker.
Our next participant is Roy, last name not provided. You may begin.
Hello, this is Roy Humphreys out here in Roland Heights, and this is an exercise in abject absurdity in that currently you've changed to this new format of public input, which essentially eliminates a huge portion of the population. Because how many can sit around for the entirety of your meetings here for an opportunity to comment on something? This is the abject absurdity and a slap in the face to the constituents here, but it's part of your smoke and mirrors.
Don't speak out. Go ahead, speaker on the phone.
Okay, and please take that hideous clock off of the screen there. It has no relationship to anything. You haven't got anybody competent to handle the darn thing. So again, this is smoke and mirrors, an absurdity, and you've eliminated with your passive-aggressive change to this new format. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Hyphen M. You may begin.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon again. My name is Haypen. I'm President of Faith and Community Empowerment. I just want to speak on Agenda 12 in favor that I think any place of review of transparency and for equity, I think is a great idea. As the recent Monterey Park killings have shown that there's a great need, even in the API community, contrary to the modern minority myth, that our communities need the same kind of resources and expertise. And I know that, for example, on mental health, Asians have the lowest use of mental health services. So as you are going about implementing this agenda item, that you will be intentional in looking at the API community and also particularly disaggregated API data. Thank you to Supervisor Mitchell and to Supervisor Horvath for looking at this because it's greatly needed, particularly, again, I believe that the API community is greatly underserved, even when many of the data points show that they are suffering on many of the issues. Thank you.
Next speaker, in person.
Hello, County Supervisors. This is about the independent external governance reform with a focus on equity. I noticed these LA County is not a member of any of the county agency governance groups that was mentioned by Holly Mitchell. I noticed that they're giving away information of how the local governance works and the local government works to people in other states. The wording of this agenda item was modified to transfer the power of the LA County Supervisors to another county. This is an attempt to gain control of a corrupt county board of supervisors, but what's happening is they're creating legal loopholes and they're doing a power grab with this. They need to be watched over, you guys, but to transfer your power to another county isn't a wise idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, you're in person.
Hello, Honorable Supervisors. Fred Sutton with the California Apartment Association. We appreciate everything you do, and we appreciate your office's hearing our concerns, and on major items, we need direct or stakeholder feedback. For years, we have asked the county to create a more transparent process at the best items before it's happening is our it gives people the time to provide input, data, calls for vigorous debate, and ultimately leads to a well-deliberated decision. Proposals with sweeping consequences and no formal input or feedback is bad policy making. A transparent and organized process does not guarantee agreement, but does ensure voices are heard and issues can be analyzed. The board should review better processes on how it vets items before it comes to the board. Thank you very much for hearing our concerns.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Patricia McAllister, someone sent me an email saying that you have hired some firm to give, so that we can get suggestions of how we can cut down fraud with the Board of Supervisors, and I did respond. And my response was to waive the county sole source policy. The sole source policy means you pick certain companies or firms to do the contracts. And they've been doing these contracts for years, and that's how you get money under the table. See, I was a business owner in Chicago. I got contracts. I either had to sleep with them or give some of the money back, and I did neither. Okay, so I know what that is about contracts. So that's what I submitted, and I see it up there, and I'm happy to see that. Now, establishing this external governance reform committee, that could be your friend. So nothing's going to change. You need somebody like me. So if I see some crap on there, I'm going to do something about it. So you need a real independent governance committee. And that would be me and a couple of these guys here who I would keep them on the straight and narrow. You don't need any more yes men and yes women because that's what you are. Thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah, the Honorable Red Chief Hunt. I don't know if the wheel was broken, but the old style meetings came down to the department heads being here. So we can get down to the issues. They're not here no more. The Brown Act, it's kind of been bounced around, but anyways, I like to see all the department heads down here, and I like to see the chief of staff dealing with the people. There's a chair and stuff like that. Nick Letter was a great guy. We just don't have that kind of mentality supervising back here anymore. So anyways, I would say let's go back to the grassroots and bring all heads of departments down here so we can get down to the bottom line. I'm still looking for Sarah Meehan, Jess, and Joe Levier. So the Brown Act is very important. I stick to grassroots. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Anna Williams. I wanted to say that I thank you guys for trying to be more transparent, but I did hear a lot of...
Anybody else on the phone? No? And no one here? Okay. Seeing no other members of the public that want to speak up on this item, Executive Officer, please call... the item 12 is now before us. Moved by Supervisor Mitchell, seconded by Supervisor Horvath. To approve this item, Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Item 12 is before you. Supervisor Solis.
Respectfully, no.
Supervisor Solis, no. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Supervisor Horvath. Supervisor Horvath, aye. Supervisor Barger.
No.
Supervisor Barger, no. Supervisor Hahn.
Respectfully, no.
Supervisor Hahn, no. Motion fails, 2-3.
Okay, now we're going to move on to item 27, the report on the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and item 41D, establishing a roadmap to address the mental health bed shortage, held by Supervisor Barger. For members of the public on the telephone, please press 1, then 0 now to comment on this item. I believe we have a presentation by Dr. Wong, our interim Director of Mental Health. Is she here? Celia, do we know? Dr. Wong?
Should be in the back. Let me see if I can get her.
Okay, well, you want Supervisor Barger, would you like to lead off with the remarks?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Trying to get organized. Oh, well, item.
Here comes Dr. Wong.
Yeah, let's have a staff report.
Okay, Dr. Wong, would you like to welcome Dr. Wong, our Interim Director of Mental Health, and I understand you're going to have something to say to us.
Thank you, Supervisor. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit today about our 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline rollout, just an update on it. And I think we have a PowerPoint, which, Supervisor, I tried to minimize.
That was good. That's good.
But we decided, and when you compare that to the calls to our access line, it's just polar opposite. Our access lines are actually over 90% third-party callers, meaning somebody is calling in about someone else they think needs help, often a loved one. So, here's some data that you could look through at your convenience. And then here are some more data metrics about our FITs in terms of dispatch and our average time to dispatch and the percentage of folks that are actually placed on a hold as a result. And dispatch, the length of time to dispatch has been a real challenge for us because of our staffing and just the size of LA County as well as operating hours. So we're happy that there has been a little bit of a decrease, over the last month or the last month on this chart in terms of dispatch time, and we've had further decreases now, but we're still, I have to say, not where we would like to be. So in terms of crisis call routing and triaging, DMH and DD Hirsch.
95% of 988 calls in LA County are safely responded to over the phone. Of the over 1,200 calls reverted from 911 to 988, only 6% were transferred back to 911. This really is a testament to the many years of work this county has dedicated toward ensuring all of our communities get the most humane and holistic response when they are experiencing mental health emergency. And I also want to recognize our contracted providers, especially Sycamores, who's performing our mobile crisis outreach, and our city-based responders, who are integrated parts of our care network. And I would just, in closing, say, Lisa, I hope that we are monitoring 988 outside of just getting the stats, doing like a secret shopper type of thing to make sure that it is remaining that high standard that we all expect, and that if additional resources are needed, that you do come to this board sooner rather than later to let us know what the deficiencies are so that we can act in a meaningful way. I mean, I think that what's happening today is definitely going to have an impact on individuals who are going to be reaching out, and I think it's more important now than ever for us to make sure that we stand ready to serve them. But I just commend you and your staff.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. And I think that your point about, the recent events really, increasing our demand, it's so true. And I think 988 is a wonderful resource for that because of the high volume of people calling in for themselves, and they're able to do it anonymously.
Thank you. Supervisor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got two questions, and just clarification. I know item 27 and 41D were held together, but one's just a report back. So will we be able to raise questions on 41D or make statements separately? How would you like us to do that?
I thought it'd be good to combine them, but I was going to let us speak on, but I don't.
That's fine. I think we held them together, but I think it'll be better if we separate them.
Easy.
No,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. I appreciate you.
Experiencing homelessness or on the verge of becoming homeless. And one of the things pointed out to me was that this 5-day unlawful order, landlords will serve it on a Friday, and the 5 days are Saturday and Sunday included, and individuals don't have the time to rectify or correct. Then the door of hope can only help so many, and they do. But have we thought about fixes or talking to the judges, because you mentioned that in your remarks, about what they are seeing taking place? Because I know that I understand where you're coming from, and you're right. It was long before COVID, and I think COVID is what kind of highlighted it. But there are issues that I even think the industry would want to sit at the table and look at as it relates to changes both state as well as even in the county. And I guess my question is, we keep talking about a moratorium under the guise of COVID, and I think the next one's going to be under the guise of emergency order for the homeless crisis. But have you, in your motion, talked to the industry to find out what their thoughts are or unintended consequences of doing some of the recommendations here?
I personally have not spoken to them. They have spoken to my office, and I know that they were very reluctant in supporting an extension. But I think that one thing that is new is that we're looking at how we can seek other funding sources for those landlords, right, to help them out. And certainly I think maybe the principal mover or the motion, we could consider talking and having that as part of our discussion with the courts and a legislative fix, because I do think it's unfair. I mean, how many times has that happened to us when you get notice on something and it's a Friday, or you can't even contact your bank because no real person is there, or you're calling Social Security or DMV. So I do think this is a problem. I don't think it should delay this though, but we could possibly add that as an amendment, that be a part of what we can certainly entertain. CEO, do you have a comment on that?
Not on the substance, Supervisor, but if the request is for us to engage with stakeholders to identify unintended consequences, we can certainly do that and work with BCBA and include it in our report back.
I'm open to that discussion. I haven't had a discussion with property owner associations on this specific item, but in the past on those issues, we have had conversations where they've opposed those kinds of changes. So I'm not hopeful, but I remain open that there will be a willingness to try and make some changes that will help keep people into housing, since we are all in this region recognizing that tenants are in trouble, and that this homelessness crisis largely is contributed to by the inflow of residents who are tenants falling into homelessness.
And I agree, and I think that I know that to vilify the industry based on a few bad actors, I think is unfair, and there are bad actors, believe me, and just like there are bad tenants. I mean, it goes both ways. It slices both ways, and I think it's important for us to look at this holistically, because again, I don't want the unintended consequences to be that the landlords either stop renting, which for the most part, if they've got a duplex, they might, and then we exacerbate the supply and demand chain that really is what got us into this mess. You've got 10 people trying to get into 3 apartments, and so what happens? The prices go up, and this is what we get. So I think we need to look at that as a balance as well. But I would just say the industry needs to be at the table. And I talked to someone about this 5-day unlawful detainer, and they said absolutely don't change it. Well, I can just tell you that I've talked to individuals that have experienced it, and they are trying in good faith. This woman wanted to pay her rent, and the landlord wouldn't cash a check. So she was trying to pay it. He wanted her out so that he could fix it up and then rent it at a higher rent to someone else. And she had nowhere to go. She has a disabled child, and she was desperate. And when they did the 5-day unlawful detainer, she didn't know what to do. And if not for Door of Hope, she would have been on the street. So I know there are stories out there, but I just feel like when I hear eviction moratorium extending, it causes me a great concern, because those that are not paying their rent are going to go, and I think, Supervisor Mitchell, I'm stealing your thunder, but they're going to go into deeper debt. So rather than correct it, and that's why I am going to be bringing a motion with Supervisor Mitchell to address that, because I think it's important for us to recognize that this is this has got to be a balanced approach, because we've got to recognize that the landlords serve a purpose too. They're housing individuals right now, but they deserve to be paid. And when you enter into a contract, you know what your obligation is. So they went in with their eyes wide open. I've talked to people who now are saying that in some cities where it's 7% increase, their rent's being increased right now as we speak, and they're nervous. about what comes next. So, you know, and that concerns me as well. I think that there are things taking place that go beyond what we even understand, but that are a direct result of the eviction moratorium and the anxiety that mom and pops especially have. Because this is their retirement for some of them. They live off of this. And so, you know, I will listen to the testimony today. I have serious reservations about this, but we'll see what your amendments are as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I believe Supervisor Mitchell is not introducing her amendments. And, yeah, you know, there are so many issues that happened long before COVID, and hopefully those are the ones we can address moving forward in terms of protecting tenants. I think the issue I have, colleagues, is that, you know, the last extension we did, we said it would be the last. And I think there's a sense, particularly from our landlords, that they're looking for, you know, honesty and transparency from us. And when we said the last one was the last, and then we're extending it another 6 months, I think that's what I have an issue with. I was hoping that someone was going to bring in something. I would be willing to support it for maybe 1 or 2 months while we work to, you know, work on tenant protection, because I think there's tenant protections are something we need to continue to keep working on. And I would say too, this, what we have authority for is to put in these protections in our unincorporated areas, which we have done. We have put in strong tenant protections in our unincorporated area. It's under this COVID emergency that we were allowed to supersede all 88 cities and demand that they follow what we have the authority to do in unincorporated. And what's happening is the state will be ending their COVID emergency, I believe at the end of February. We will probably be looking to end our COVID emergency, because while COVID is still here, the crisis that we experienced 2 years ago, I mean, it's very different now than it was then. And I would say to my cities, and I would say to all of you who are here today, you know, your cities that you reside in have an obligation as well to put in the same tenant protections that we have done in our unincorporated area. And I know I got letters from some of my cities asking us to continue this while they worked to put in tenant protections in their own cities. But I would say at your very next council meeting, you should also put in strong tenant protections for your residents, just like we have done in unincorporated. And I will say, Supervisor Barger, I have heard loud and clear as well from our landlords. And it has not been a fair process so far. And a lot of that money that has been there for mortgage relief or landlord relief just has not gotten to them. And I know I hear that a lot, that so far, because they would be fine if they were made whole, right? I don't think they would care where the money was coming from if they were made whole. But to have their tenants not paying rent, which we have sanctioned, but them not getting the relief that they need to continue to make the repairs that they're doing, the mortgages that they need to pay, I think has been unfair. So I have concerns as well. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I want to make sure I heard you correctly, because I want to see if we can actually help protect renters here. Were you suggesting you would be supportive if it were limited to the end of March?
Well, I think it should. Yeah, I would go to the end of the March. I was thinking to the end of when the state ended their moratorium. I mean, their COVID emergency, which would be February, which would be the end of February.
I think the goal is to get to a majority so we can move some protections. So if we don't hear agreement on June 30, you're saying, what would you agree to?
I would agree to 2 months.
Okay, so end of March? Is that March 31?
Okay. I would take March 31.
Okay.
But again, we need to really work on, I believe, Supervisor Barger, you have a motion about getting resources to our landlords, which is coming up. So I would agree with that, but, that we've tried to have an off-ramp of this at every meeting, and we can't seem to get on that off-ramp.
Well, I think that's part of what the substance of this motion is trying to do in the later parts of the motion. But I just want to make sure if we can't get June 30th to be the date, if you're willing to move March 31, if there's agreement around that, I think what we're trying to find are ways to continue to protect renters, to stand up the programs that we're looking at in this item, to get the reports back on the particulars that people are asking for. It sounds like there's another motion coming forward either today or at some point in the future to take a look at how we would implement funding for landlords.
And hopefully that's enough time for our cities. Again, if all of you are from a city other than unincorporated county, you need to be showing up at their city council meetings and urging them to put in tenant protections for you if you live in their city. And so maybe 2 months will be enough time for you to begin lobbying the cities where you live.
Madam Chair, if I could just chime in, I think that would, for me, it's acceptable if we could go to March. And I think that the public needs to also be aware, and I know the advocates are aware of this, that there is funding that will be made available through the state. People have applied for it. But like anything else, like DMV and EDD, sometimes the wheels turn slow in Sacramento. But this is there's an urgency here. So we also have to let our folks in Sacramento know that this is important. We have over 140,000 applications in the state. 40 to 50,000 we know are from people in LA County. So if we could get them to get that funding out to them, they're going to pay. That's what this is intended for, and that to me is the right thing to do. And at least going to March is, I think, a good compromise.
Thank you. But again, when the state ends their COVID emergency, am I correct that it's February 28th? We face, and we know this, we face a bit of risk. But I'm willing to do that as a compromise.
Madam Chair, do you need me to read that date into the record? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, Holly doesn't have it, right? She doesn't have an amendment. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. But you were amending it.
But no, I'm not sure where that came from. I am on the other motion because it didn't stop in, everybody else could certainly have had it. So I just wanted to say, there are other elements of the current motion before us that gives me cause for concern. Supervisor Solis mentioned earlier, just now, the state program with their backlog. I think we should be clear about that program. That program took applications up to April of 2022. So that's how far back that reimbursement goes. So we still have landlords who have not received any relief because the state stopped their program from April 2022 to today, almost a full year. So if we're extending, that adds additional time of unpaid rent. I hope the state does get with the program and pay it, but let's be clear, that's back rent of over a year ago. And so my perspective has been that, I carried the motion a month ago to get us to January 31st. I don't believe any cities have made any move in the last month, not one. And if we all continue to say our concern is people being forced into homelessness, let's be clear. The one element that tenants and landlords agree to, it's because of a lack of resources. The current motion before us, I think, has $5 million. If an average back rent is $20,000, based on the way it's outlined in the current motion, that would be about 100 people. Out of a county of 10 million, I think we must do more. if we have the shared concern about people being thrust into homelessness, the issue is providing support to cover their rent. You know, to carry a $20,000 judgment means for, you know, poor people, quite frankly, working class people. If you have a judgment against you, no school loan, no home loan, an auto loan with interest rate that you can't imagine, the way in which you would be restricted for living, even to rent another apartment. If a financial check goes and there's a 5-figure judgment against you, that's a problem. So my goal has always been and continues to be rent relief that helps the landlords, that helps the tenant not carry a huge financial burden. $5 million's not enough. I will stand by a motion that expands that to the utmost.
Yes.
We know that we've got an opportunity through ARPA up to 40 million. You know, we're clear, we've heard from county departments that there is no true idea about the total gap in back rent. But going as far as we possibly can to provide true protection to tenants as well as mom and pop landlords is where I continue to stand.
And I do know that Supervisor Barger has a motion. You're going to read it in at another time, but I feel like
We can do it under A1. And so, can we, like we did with the mental health, we'll combine this item with A1. Is that okay? So I'll go ahead and read it.
because I think we want to hear it.
So on December 20th, this is a motion by myself and Supervisor Mitchell. On December 20th, 2022, Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors adopted an amendment to a motion directing the CEO and the Director of Consumer and Business Affairs to report back in 30 days on the development of a small, quote, mom and pop landlord assistance program to assist small property owners with non-mortgage related costs and expenses, and identify up to $5 million of funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and or American Recovery Act Program Act funds to implement this program. The Los Angeles County CEO, in collaboration with the DCBA, has explored various funding opportunities for the launch of mom and pop non-mortgage landlord assistance program, including the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Measure H, ARPA funds, and various state and federal funding sources. DCBA recommended establishing a program that would make direct investments into the hardest hit rental communities by providing direct assistance to qualifying landlords with expenses directly attributed to the non-payment of rent for their current tenants. Therefore, the recommendation includes up to $30,000 to be paid directly to landlords to help cover any qualifying unpaid expense related to the preservation, maintenance, or upkeep of the property. This allocation would amount to a cap of just under 12 months of the average fiscal year 2023 fair market rent, as reported by HUD for Los Angeles County. A full allocation of $5 million in ARPA funds would only allow DCBA to disperse, at minimum, 166 grants to qualifying applicants. This, however, is simply not enough to meet the needs of our LA County property owners and tenants. Hundreds of individuals are in need of assistance and contact our board offices regularly seeking aid. By expanding the allocation to $45 million, we can explore dispersing at minimum 1,328 grants in the amount of $30,000 per unit. The CEO should report back on additional funding resources such as prioritizing the one-time ARPA funds intended for COVID-19 recovery, as well as Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Measure H, and various state and federal funding sources, as long as the recommendation does not impact ongoing and permanent county programs. The CEO can utilize the fiscal year 2022-23 mid-year budget adjustment or the 2023-24 budget process to transfer at least $45 million to DCBA, whichever is appropriate based on the program launch timeline. We therefore move that the Board of Supervisors direct the CEO to identify and allocate at least $45 million to establish a new relief program for mom and pop property owners and report back in writing to the board in 30 days This should include funding sources such as prioritizing ARPA funds, then looking at the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Measure H, and various state and federal funding sources. And the program should provide up to $30,000 per unit. I'm differentiating. I keep saying per unit because the current recommendation is a total per unit directly to landlords that agree that the accepted funds. Oh, I'll let you. Where's that? Okay. Accepted funds to landlords agree that accepted funds means the tenants cannot be evicted for non-payment of rent. And then Supervisor Mitchell, what did I miss? 14 days
We've been
instead of 30
moving fast
days.
and furious today, and I think, given the critical nature of this, that we ask that the report back come in 14 days, not 30 days. And that's what was just distributed to people.
Yeah, so
14 days.
14 days, but I wanted the $30,000 per unit, and then we incorporated the language that cannot be evicted for non-payment of rent.
Madam Chair, just one question. On the first page at the bottom, the last paragraph, it says, the CEO should report back on additional funding sources such as prioritizing one-time ARPA funds intended for COVID recovery as well as affordable housing trusts, Measure H, various state and federal funding sources, as long as the recommendation does not impact ongoing and current and permanent county programs. I would recommend that language be also attached to where it says this should include funding sources such as blah, blah, blah. So you continue with what you already said on the first page.
Because typically when you do a preamble, if it's not in the directive, but I think that's why we put it in the preamble, is to outline what our priority was. I mean, we've said it, but if you want to put it in the I therefore move, but I guess then we need to get a clarification on how we all interpret what that means. And that's why I leave it at the discretion of the CEO.
So it's your feeling, maker of the motion, that when you say direct the CEO to identify and allocate at least $45 million.
Well, could we put it in the preamble in terms of pointing it out? I mean, I don't know. I'll leave.
Supervisor Solis, I'm not clear what you were asking.
I'm just saying lift the sentence where you have at the end on the first page where it says
as long as the recommendation does not impact ongoing.
You're saying take that and put
take
it
that
in
little
the
phrase.
I therefore move, because in the
Include it.
preamble it's just a sentence, but in the I therefore move it's an action.
So it's just the additional line that says
as
state and federal funding sources, as long as the recommendation does not impact ongoing and permanent county programs.
I mean, I feel like it's in the motion.
Yeah, but I'm just.
You want to.
Yeah, I would.
You want
I
to
would
highlight
feel
it.
comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, if we say it in the preamble, then we mean it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
With that, let me just be clear, because I think we've had some discussion. So, actually, I would prefer that it not. Let's just get the report back based on the way it's worded this way. That would be my preference, Supervisor Solis and Supervisor Barger.
Okay. And for me, I mean, I don't know if it's in the preamble. It's our intent. So that's why I said leave it to the discretion of the CEO. But
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
All coming back to us.
Yeah, it's all coming back to us.
It's going to come back to us to
That's fine.
have
I
to
just,
take
at
the
that
action
time,
anyway.
If we feel that it doesn't do what we need it to do, then we'll bring it back on that. Okay.
And then one more question about the 60-day till March 31st. There were some other things in your motion that went extended out much farther. Is the 60 days applying to everything in the motion? Because that would be my intention.
So I'm clear. I'm looking at in section 1B, changing June 30th, 2023 to March 31st, 2023.
Clear that this motion will do everything for 60 days.
May I seek clarification on the other part of the motion that was recently introduced? My understanding is that the $45 million that is directed in this language will only go to small landlords, and that will leave some tenants out. And so I want to make sure that while I understand that our intention is to protect small landlords in this motion, is it your intention to leave those tenants out, or are we protecting them as well?
Oh, you're the maker of that motion.
I guess, well, that is a good question, actually. And I think that for me, I'm focusing on the mom and pops, but clearly am open to casting that net wider. I mean, 45 million is a lot of money, but given how far we're in the rears, and I'm glad that Supervisor Mitchell pointed out what the state's funding is going to go toward, because there's still about a year and probably a year and a half gap in terms of those that have not paid their rent. But the focus was on mom and pop, strictly.
And that would, your directive is in addition to what we're proposing?
In addition to what you're proposing.
Okay.
Correct? It was 40 plus the 5. They've got the 5 million. We've got the 4.
So Madam Chair.
45.
Yes. And so the bulk of the money that we're going to be supporting will go to mortgage relief.
No, I
Supervisor
don't know what
Mitchell,
you're trying to clarify.
you have your.
Yeah, I don't know what you're trying to clarify.
I think what has become confusing is we have a motion sort of on the floor, and questions were asked about another upcoming motion. And so we've kind of gone back and forth, and so I think, I don't know how you manage that, Madam Chair, because it is not Supervisor Barger or my intention to amend the motion on the floor. It is a separate motion.
Correct. And
falls under A1.
Okay, so it falls under A1. She read it in while we were discussing this because it seemed appropriate for me particularly to hear that we do have a motion that is requesting more money for our landlords.
And actually, the directives that we have
But
are
your motion
different.
will not be voted on.
No, I understand,
today.
but just to Supervisor Horvath, the motion that you all have is very prescriptive in terms of how that 5 million can be spent, and that's why I made a point in the motion that I read for us that it's 30,000 per unit. The motion that you all are bringing in is 30,000 in total, and it has to go to maintenance.
The first directive says relief program for mom and pop property owners.
But is it for rent relief or is it? Yeah.
Which
your motion?
I'm asking about yours and you're asking about mine. Is that what's happening here?
No, I'm just trying to get a clarification because we're talking about. I'm asking you about your 5 million because I'm talking about 45 million. No, I mean, I'm not. I'm just trying to understand in my own mind.
Yeah.
Yes. Our motion allocates $5 million for COVID-19 emergency funding, $2 million to stay housed LA for rental relief, $3 million to the new non-mortgage small landlord, aka mom and pop assistance program, and then additionally calls for the report back as outlined in items 3 and 4.
Okay, so the motion that we have enhances it takes it a step further and does not limit it to maintenance. It actually, and it's per unit versus 30,000 total.
That's what I was asking. So your motion is in addition to this?
Yes.
Supervisor.
It's separate. It's
Yeah,
separate.
separate.
Yes.
Yes, and we're not voting on.
No, I know, but I'm
yours.
trying to
So
respond,
we probably our county council will probably say we probably shouldn't even be talking about it.
No, we combined motions. We combined items.
Yes, Supervisor Mitchell.
So I just wanted to clarify that the Barger Mitchell motion is rent relief. It is not a mortgage program. It is rent relief on the second motion.
Yes. Well, we haven't taken public comment on this yet. We've been waiting for our public comment. So, Madam Executive Officer, please call those people who have signed up to speak on this item. And the item is 41A.
Danielle Jimenez and Dennis Lowe. Please come forward and staff will assist you. We have
You are in queue.
Our first participant is Simon Gibens. Please go ahead.
general crisis. Any extension of the moratorium is just solving a problem that no longer exists. Please, supervisors, our livelihood is at risk, and our tenants' homes will also be at risk if we can't pay our mortgage. It's time to let us get back to business.
We continue to pay our taxes, our mortgage, and our increasing maintenance and utility bills. But our tenants don't have to follow the same rules. Meanwhile, unemployment is at its lowest level since 1969. Prices actually fell in December, and other businesses are operating normally. This is no longer a general crisis. Any extension of the moratorium is just solving a problem that no longer exists. Please, supervisors, our livelihood is at risk, and our tenants' homes will also be at risk if we can't pay our mortgage. It's time to let us get back to business, just like other business sectors. Thank you for your time.
And our next participant is Bill Mayer. You may begin.
Thank you. I'm experiencing painful unintended consequences from these extended protections. I own a single residential townhouse unit in Woodland Hills, inherited from my mother when she passed away. I make all mortgage payments, taxes, maintenance, and homeowners association fees. I've only been able to keep the property for my own retirement by renting the unit. Immediately following the declaration of the COVID emergency, my renter completely ceased paying any rent, and I'm not legally allowed to verify actual need, as it may be. I myself am a renter. I donate to homeless causes and volunteer on a 988 suicide.
Supervisors, my name is Jonathan Holland, Rent Stabilization Manager in the Human Services and Rent Stabilization Department at the City of West Hollywood. Expressing the city's support for the motion and extension of the Tenant Protection Resolution. For nearly 40 years, the City of West Hollywood has been committed to tenant protection and the fundamental human right to housing security. Today's extension, if adopted, will ensure the furtherance of these important goals and give people breathing room during this transitional period. Thank you to Supervisors Horvath and Solis for this item and for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Hector Ramirez. You may begin.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Hector Ramirez, and I'm calling on behalf of VICA, the Valley Industry and Commerce Association. We urge the board to oppose supplemental agenda item 41A and responsibly phase out the county's eviction moratorium and rent freeze. It is time housing providers throughout the county can resume normal operations to ensure thriving communities and investments in housing. In 2022, the county took drastic and necessary actions to slow the spread of COVID-19 virus. Fortunately, we are in a very different environment now. The improved public health environment, the availability of vaccines and lack of shelter-in-place orders, and the much improved economy are positive developments which warrant a full lifting and phase out of the eviction moratorium and rent freeze. Landlords do not cause the homelessness problem, and they are not the solution to this problem. The emergency eviction moratorium that was put in place in 2022 must be lifted in its entirety and not extended any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Henry Cares. You may begin.
Hey, I just wanted to say, those that work in the service economy in Los Angeles can't afford rent anymore. The price of it doesn't correlate with the services landlord render or awareness of the populations that landlords are supposedly aiming to serve. Landlords want to gentrify Los Angeles by attracting white-collar workers from globalized economy and sending long-term blue-collar residents into a state of displacement, death, and homelessness. If you allow landowners to evict their tenants who cannot afford rent, you'll be committing a genocide. I hope that those that are displaced haunt your dreams and ultimately haunt you. We did a land acknowledgement addressing indigenous people. Think about who have created the social fabric of Los Angeles you are proud of in the 20th century. Consider them indigenous as well and protect them. I think there's a weird false equivalence to people not being able to retire, to people not being able to live anywhere. And I think that those that own multiple homes, I don't feel as much empathy for them as someone who could be put out on the street, and I think you should apply the same. I think showing loyalty to landlords at this time would be a flaw of character on the part of the council, and if you can take care of them while keeping people housed, that's great. Yeah. But the material reality is to keep people housed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Jody Margolis. You may begin.
Hi, I'm Jody. I'm calling from the Vista Street Tenants Association in West Hollywood. My neighbors and I are being evicted by the Ellis Act, so we are 100% support this motion authored by our former mayor, Supervisor Horvath, and Supervisor Solis. Of course, we would prefer the June 30th date, but we will take what we can get from you guys. We are still dealing with fallout from COVID and need more time. Please help us stay in our homes longer. We need more affordable housing solutions immediately. Enough with the luxury buildings already. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Stacy Shakib. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Stacy Shakib. I am calling from a family business. We are a mom and pop owner in Los Angeles, and we actually do have a development project that's due to break ground, and we cannot do that because we cannot evict our tenants due to this eviction moratorium. This project has been put on hold for the past 3 years and has been costing us lots and lots of money. In order for us to provide more housing for the people in Los Angeles, we cannot move forward with this project because of this eviction moratorium. We please urge you to not extend this moratorium.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Megan Marino. You may begin.
Hello, Supervisors. I am a small housing provider in the county of LA. I feel lied to. You guys many times now have said you're providing an off-ramp, you're going to end the moratorium, and there's always another extension, there's always another excuse. It's always kicking the can down the road. And then we're left to fight over a few dollars of relief. It seems that we didn't even get rent relief because our tenants wouldn't cooperate with us. So that rent is all the way back in 2020. Like, we're never going to be paid for that. And now we've got to fight over a few dollars and jump through hoops and see if we qualify. It's too little too late. And this needs to end. You guys keep extending and extending excuses. They're just, people are losing faith. Like a multi-year ever-extending moratorium that forces the county housing providers to foot this enormous bill is not legitimate or a workable solution to larger non-COVID related housing issues. You are fooling yourself if you believe that landlords of modest means can last 3.5 years without receiving rent while still covering bills and maintaining properties. To me, it is shocking that these numbers.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Ashley Oliver. You may begin.
Thank you so much. As a new landlord, this has been quite difficult for me to kind of wrap my mind around, and very similar to the last individual who spoke. Being told consistently that it's extended, and doing the right thing, continuing with bills, continuing to make sure that things are paid, is just not fair to us. I don't think that it's the landlord's responsibility to clean this up, especially if we're doing the right thing, and we have been doing the right thing this entire time. This discourages me to want to even rent again, given the fact that this is something that I feel like I have no control over. Even going to find relief, it says the application is closed. So it's a case where, what are we supposed to do now when we've been doing the right thing? And where's our mortgage relief? We're not getting any relief in that sense. So it's not fair to us to continue to try to fix a problem that we didn't cause.
Thank you.
Janelle Martinez. You may begin.
Know this, my scenario is not the minority, but in fact the majority, and I speak on behalf of all small landlords. My partner and I have 2 tenants who have physically not paid us rent for over a year and a half.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Cheryl Taylor. You may begin.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Cheryl Taylor.
Sandra Christensen. You may begin.
Hi.
Our next participant is Van Bowie. You may begin.
Vengo del distrito número 1, represento a la comunidad de Sage.
Good afternoon, my name is Mirna Aguilar. I come from District 1. I belong to District 1.
Unincorporated LA.
Now I'm asking you to support the same opportunity for tenants in incorporated cities. There was a need for tenant protections prior to the pandemic, and there is an even greater need now. Please vote yes on item 41A. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Oh, we're going in person.
Our next participant.
Hello.
¿Me escuchan? Muy buenas tardes, señores. Primero, mi nombre es Mirna Aguilar. Vengo del distrito número 1. Represento a la comunidad de Sage.
Good afternoon. My name is Mirna Aguilar. I come from District 1. I belong to District 1. I represent the Sage.
Primero quiero pedirles que me escuchen con el corazón.
First, I would like to ask if you can listen to me from the heart.
Esta es la primera vez que ustedes miran a nuestra comunidad pidiendo por extensiones, ¿verdad que nunca lo habíamos hecho?
This is the first time that you have requested for an extension. Do you remember that we have never done this before?
Esto tiene nombre y apellido y se llama COVID-19.
This has a name and a last name, and it's called COVID-19.
La diferencia entre nosotros y los dueños de renta.
The difference between us and the landlords
es que esos cuartos a los que ellos medio arreglan, en los que nosotros vivimos y los rentan al doble del precio, para ellos son cuartos, para nosotros son nuestros hogares donde hemos criado nuestros hijos.
The difference between those rooms that the landlords fix up for us to rent, for them is just a room. For us, it's our home, where we raise our children.
Quiero decirles que nosotros no estamos pidiendo limosna.
I'm here to tell you that we are not beggars.
Y tampoco que nos perdonen la renta.
And we're not asking for them to forgive the rent.
Porque nunca nos han perdonado ni un solo centavo.
Because they have never forgiven us a penny.
Solo pedimos el tiempo necesario para poder pagar. Porque somos trabajadores. Tenemos dignidad y estamos aquí para seguir luchando por nuestra comunidad. Muchísimas gracias.
We are here to ask for your assistance. We need more time. We just need the time for us to move on.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Crystal Beard, and I'm here on behalf of landlords being forced to bear the burden. No one can deny that the pandemic was devastating. Thankfully, businesses reopened, and now hiring signs were in every window, and still no rents paid. We even watched you guys embrace each other today. I saw schools and daycares reopen, and still no rents. I registered new Porsches to our garage onto accounts that I haven't seen payment on in nearly 3 years. I see more than just a few residents with a balance of over 100K leave to purchase houses, post on social media about lavish vacations, and able to do so by using the magic word COVID. I was told by my resident that withholding rent was an interest-free loan, and heard others mock the city for making it so easy to secure a check. Just say COVID and your landlord's hands are tied, no proof required, no questions asked, backed by a city who pretends to be blind to the flaws in the policy. Billions of dollars have been made available to households and individuals affected, but now it is over. We are one of the very last jurisdictions in the nation to still have these pandemic protections in place, and it is not okay that it continues. We are not banks, we are not private welfare. What's devastating now is this mess that has been created, and that there is actual consideration to prolong it even further. It is enough, it must stop. We need to put an end date to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Irma Fabián y soy
Moderator.
Our next participant is David Hunter.
Don't qualify for assistance and maybe don't really need your help, but simply want to get their leverage back. But I want to say thanks. I'm definitely going to be evicted under the L effect as soon as your moratorium is lifted. So I'm glad that it might be. I would ask you to consider extending. Thank you.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Jerome Eisenbert. You may begin.
Thank you, Supervisors. I'm a small landlord in the San Fernando Valley, and I do understand that housing has evolved to be a right, but so is our right to be private property owners. unfortunately, you decide to try to extend it for another 6 months, the actions of the board are poisoning the relationship between tenants and landlords. Evictions take 6 months or a year to handle. No one will be on the street tomorrow. We don't want to evict people. We want to work with them, but it makes it impossible. Rents are high because of the eviction moratorium. There is no velocity of people moving because they don't have to. Housing, if you want housing to be a right, you need to pay for that right. Landlords should not have to.
Thank you. Your time is expired. Thank you. Your time is expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Sandra Cohen. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Sandra Cowan, and I'm calling to request that the board oppose item 41A. As a small sole proprietor apartment owner in Los Angeles County, I am keenly aware of the unfairness of the county's eviction moratorium policy over these past few years. Housing providers provide a valuable service to renters within the county and do so while trying to make mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, utilities, and upkeep of their buildings. Many, myself included, also rely on the rent to supplement Social Security and retirement. It is so unfair to expect one segment of the population to bear responsibility for the whole county. The benefit programs help, but many do not qualify. Today, COVID no longer deserves the draconian measures which were the response at the onset of the pandemic.
Thank you. Your time is expired. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Marguerite Adams. You may begin.
Well, if maybe you just, even if you're here with several groups, like if there's a lot of landlords or a lot of tenants, like maybe identify one person that might speak for you, that would be helpful. Or instead of repeating everything that maybe some other speakers have said, maybe you just really touch on maybe one thing, because I think we're maybe could lose some supervisors to the time. So I'm just trying to be respectful of everybody who wants to address the board. Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Cheryl Tarek L. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. I'm a member of the Apartment Association, California Southern Cities, and I implore you to oppose item 41A and end the moratorium as communicated and planned. Please.
Thank you.
Our next participant is Terrence Rutledge. You may begin.
Please extend the eviction moratorium. Protect people's right to housing. It is the humane and right thing to do. That is all.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Hema Hattie. You may begin. Gary Raymond. You may begin.
Agree that it's true, but why take from the landlord? You know, I'm not sure if you're aware what the definition of theft is, but it's basically taking something away from someone. And that's basically what I'm seeing here. Like, when my tenants don't pay, they steal from my kids and my family. I've already lost my...
Jeez, do you know how many?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Grossman, and I represent Equity Residential. We're a nationwide apartment owner and operator who's provided housing in Los Angeles and throughout the county for many years. Item 41A should be opposed. For months, the county's communications and official board action has explicitly broadcast to residents that the emergency housing measures would end at the beginning of 2023. Extending the moratorium with 1 week before expiration and without any warning is wrong, and it is bad governance. The order at hand fails to properly recognize that the housing providers have suffered through a series of emergency measures, changing orders, and slow relief, or in many cases, none at all. The net result is that many of us are carrying substantial amounts of delinquent accounts for residents that are no longer at risk due to COVID-related circumstances. I should note that the unemployment rate in the county as of December 2022 stood at 4.4%, compared to 4.0% in December of 2019. These were always temporary measures that were intended to protect those who were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, but where is the economic support for any further continuance of the protections? The county should recognize that the economy has rebounded and people are not back to work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Our next participant is Scott Elrich. You may go to the line of Jennifer Laswell. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Supervisors. I've been a landlord in LA County for 2 decades, and my goal has always been to form good relationships with my residents.
Okay, just briefly, the fruits of the subversion of the public comment to the board is bearing its ugly head today. Here's as 8 hours. How many people, as others have stated, can deal with this type of subversion? And then earlier, you voted down to truth and transparency in the Brown Act. You're shameful. People are just shameful at the very best.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next we'll go to the line of Karen Greenberg. Please go ahead.
Hello. I'm 70 years old. I have income, property, along with Social Security. My tenants have been paying their rent. I had tenants who went on hard times during COVID. They applied for the assistance program, and we got the money for assistance. They are now paying their rent again. But all the time I get calls from major corporations trying to buy my property, thinking that I'm distressed. If I were to sell my property to these major corporations, my tenants would be in tremendous problems. It would cause a tremendous problem for my tenants because I'm fair to them. Please don't let the properties be taken away from the mom and pop.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next we'll go to the line of Candy Downton. Please go ahead.
Hi, Supervisors. In the supplemental agenda for today, under the link for motion by Supervisors Horvath and Solis on page 14, under tenant certifications, it says that the extended protection period is for household incomes at 80% area median income or below. So this is not open-ended for everyone as in the original protection. It is for the most distressed in need. There are further requirements for the tenants to certify their income for 80% median or below. These are the safeguards that address the need for the most desperate tenants in need, as well as funding for the most desperate mom and pop in need. So when the supported motion by Supervisor Hahn and the feasibility...
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Next we'll go to the line of King Chung. Please go ahead.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Mitchell. Supervisor Mitchell, abstain. Supervisor Horvath. Aye. Supervisor Horvath, aye. Supervisor Barger.
No.
Supervisor Barger, no. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Motion carries 4-1 with one abstention.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 3-1 with one abstention.
Right. Okay, thank you. So that item passes.
Right.
And now we're going to move to item A1. Is that correct? A1, which was held by Supervisor Barger. For members of the public on the telephone, please press 1 and 0 now to comment on A1.
People talked about gentrification and what caused homelessness. You know, it's important that I, too, bring a reflection. I represent the 2nd District. Baldwin Village has maybe 200 apartment buildings, many of which are 20 units or fewer. And they are owned not by landlords on 6 figures, as someone suggested. They are
go ahead,
owned
Supervisor.
primarily by former public employees.
Yes, if I may, I know time is tight, but I just feel compelled, Madam Chair, just as we listen to this group of last witnesses, people talked about gentrification and what caused homelessness. You know, it's important that I too bring a reflection. I represent the 2nd District. Baldwin Village has maybe 200 apartment buildings, many of which are 20 units or fewer. And they are owned not by landlords who earn 6 figures, as someone suggested. They are owned primarily by former public employees who bought these buildings in the 60s and 70s. And so they're old properties. And in the second district, that's the most affordable community. So when we talk about gentrification, if those landlords lose those properties, quite frankly, my peer group, their grandkids aren't in the position to buy them. That's when gentrification happens, because those small buildings that are the most affordable housing units in my district go to corporations. So as we talk about individual stories, and we heard horrific stories today. We absolutely did. And what troubles me is I feel like landlords and tenants are on opposite ends of the spectrum, and we're not hearing ways in which the two can support one another in a meaningful way. Gentrification is real. People losing property is real, just like my district was hit by the housing boom when people lost property 10, 15 years ago. So I joined with you, Supervisor Barger, to make sure that mom and pop in the second district, those people who own the buildings that are the last bastion of affordable housing units, can still own them, have the resources to repair roofs. The calls, the hundreds of calls we got from distressed mom and pop landlords who through this last rain, who want to be good landlords and provide healthy, appropriate places for their fellow Angelenos to live. So I'm proud to join with you in this motion to direct resources to help people stay housed, which is to provide rent relief so tenants also don't carry heavy debts into the coming years. I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you. Are there members of the public that have signed up to speak on this?
I show no members of the public on telephonic and in person.
Okay, hearing no other comments, item A1 is before us. Moved by Supervisor Barger, seconded by Supervisor Mitchell to approve this item. Executive Officer Go.
I'm very sorry. Supervisor Barger, we agreed, Supervisor Horvath asked that we make that one word change in the language
and you've got
to
the
prioritize
mom and pops.
Just to read for the record, we were adding one word.
Man, we had a clean getaway.
I'm sorry. It was to direct, the motion reads CEO to identify and allocate at least $45 million to establish new rent relief programs that prioritize mom and pop property owners.
And I accept that.
Okay.
And you accept it.
Okay,
I did as well.
With that one sentence amendment, 2 words, not even a sentence. 2 word, both the author and co-author have accepted that. So that item now is before us as amended. Moved by Supervisor Barger, seconded by Supervisor Mitchell to approve this item. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
A1 as amended, Supervisor Solis. Aye. Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Supervisor Horvath.
Aye.
Supervisor Horvath, aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, now we are to public comment.
We are on specials.
We're on specials. I think I've lost, here we go. This time it'd be appropriate to hear from supervisors on items not posted on the agenda to be presented or referred to staff or placed on future agenda. We have matters of urgency for the board's consideration that Supervisor Solis would like to read in.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And with that, I believe we can vote on these 2 motions as we have cleared with County Council. So the first motion is really dealing with the topic that we started out this morning on with the mass shooting in Monterey Park. So I'll kind of skip what my narrative is because of the time, and I will just go straight to what the asks are. We therefore move that the Board of Supervisors make a finding pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2B2 that there is a need to take immediate action, and the need to take this action came to the attention of the Board of Supervisors subsequent to the posting of the agenda for today's meeting, and declare gun violence a public health crisis. Direct the Office of Violence Prevention in collaboration with county and community partners to finalize and publicly release the platform to address gun violence. Direct the Chief Executive Office in collaboration with the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Public Health, and the Department of Aging and Disabilities and relevant departments to do the following. Work with county, state, federal partners to coordinate necessary resources and funding to support the survivors, the victims, and their families of the Monterey Park mass shooting. Coordinate targeted outreach to AAPI older adults to provide appropriate resources and trauma services, including those provided by community-based providers that are linguistically and culturally appropriate. And direct the Chief Executive Office of the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Public Health, and relevant departments to work in collaboration with county partners and external subject matter experts in assessing and updating protocols and procedures for the county, in particular the Office of Emergency Management, on providing a seamless response to incidents of mass violence in LA County, and report back in writing. The report back should include the development of protocols and procedures for the Office of Emergency Management and relevant departments to deploy in the event of a mass shooting or similar violent event, the creation of a resource bank, including culturally and linguistically appropriate materials from all relevant county departments to deploy for a mass shooting or similar violent event. The development of a countywide community outreach and engagement and public information plan to communicate with multilingual, ethnic, and hyperlocal media. Review of existing training for county staff and contractors to ensure a coordinated response to mass shootings or similar violent events. A plan to work in coordination with local, state, and federal partners in identifying resources and support to assist victims, and a plan to identify community-based and faith-based providers, victim advocacy groups with resources and support for victim survivors and their families. Direct the Chief Executive Office to work with the Department of Public Health, the Department of Health Services, and County Council to identify the necessary ongoing funding to support the above directives, including utilizing available unallocated Measure B funding, American Rescue Plan Act funding, and the Department of Public Health's Office of Violence Prevention and or other departmental resources for gun violence prevention. Direct all departments to report back on the above directives in 60 days with the updates every 60 days thereafter for the duration of 2023. Thank you. And now I recognize my co-author, Madam Chair, Hahn, for your remarks. Me on this motion.
Yes.
Some of us may have been made aware by news media, but I'm very disturbed, and I think some of us rightly so. On the heels of a mass shooting in my district, we learned that the probation department is selling their surplus handguns online. This is a reckless behavior. These guns should not be sold. They should be destroyed. And as a county, this practice must be halted immediately. But that's why I'm bringing this read in motion before the board today. We're averaging more than one mass shooting every single day in the United States, with Monterey Park mass shooting being the 36th mass shooting this year alone. The board is taking many actions to prevent gun violence, including the investment of millions of dollars to the Office of Violence Prevention and the county's anti-hate initiative. We also work closely to close loopholes involving gun possession and all necessary steps to strengthen our ordinances regarding our firearms, all to keep our residents safe from harm. That's why such an auction directly compromises the board's effort to address the gun violence epidemic. It is antithetical to the county's values, and it is dangerous and highly insensitive in the wake of a recent large-scale tragedy in our community. Although the probation department has halted this auction, simply put, the county should not be in the business of putting more guns on the street. To that end, I will read in the following directives. We therefore move that the Board of Supervisors making a finding pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2b2 that there is a need to take immediate action, and the need to take this action came to the attention of the Board of Supervisors subsequent to the posting of the agenda for today's meeting, and direct the Chief Executive Office and all county departments working with the Internal Services Department to review if other firearm and ammunition sales are being auctioned, and immediately rescind and halt the auction of any firearms and or ammunition owned by the county departments, including the probation department. direct the Probation Oversight Commission and the County Council in collaboration with the Probation Department to investigate the auction of the Probation Department's firearms and ammunition. Direct Internal Services Department to develop a policy to ban the sale of firearms and ammunition, coupled with the plan to destroy any firearms and ammunition, including the firearms and ammunition that the Probation Department recently auctioned. Direct the Chief Executive Office to coordinate the above directors and report back in writing in 30 days. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Solis. I think you and I received this notification about the same time, and I actually said to my staff, we need to do a motion. You beat me to it. It is unbelievable that our probation department was about to auction off hundreds of guns to gun dealers to then be sold to the general public. I was shocked. I was disgusted. This board has been working so hard to prevent gun violence in LA County. I mean, our mission is to get guns off the streets. I have been hosting gun buyback programs every couple of months in my district so that people can, in return for a gift card, can get their guns off the streets. Then our sheriff's department destroys those guns. So the fact, and I'm going to do one in Wilmington on March 4th with LAPD. So the fact that our probation department would be simultaneously putting guns back onto the street is absurd. We all need to be united in our fight against gun violence. Every gun out there has the potential of being used for violence or being stolen from someone's home and then also used in the committing of a crime. So I want to get guns off the street. I don't want to put them back into the street. I've reached out to the sheriff's department to ask if they would be willing to work with the probation department to destroy these guns the same way that they destroy the ones from our gun buyback. And they said absolutely. So we're going to work to get these specific guns destroyed, but it's also important to make sure that this doesn't happen again, which is why we need this motion, and we needed it obviously urgently. So thank you so much. Supervisor Mitchell, did you want to?
If I may, Madam Chair, in terms of content, I absolutely support it. I just am needing to understand the circumstances in which we have a read-in that allows us to take this kind of immediate action. I think since I've been here, I may be wrong, we've had read-ins that we could vote on that day because they were report backs. This appears to me in my very quick perusal, as Supervisor Solis was reading it, that we take action. And so, again, I too don't want guns on the street, but I'm wondering if we had more time and we're able to deliberate, there may be other departments, there may be more that we need to take action on. I appreciate there was an article that came out. I don't understand, for example, why, based on the article, why it called to the chief to say halt until the board creates a policy. So if someone could just explain the process.
Right, and I'll have our county council, which is why we take a vote. And if you disagree that it is urgent and we have to do it now, then you would vote no. So the first vote we take is one that says we agree that it can be voted on today. If you don't agree with that, you have the right to vote no, that you think it needs more vetting. I think I'll let county council talk about it, but the fact that they were going to do this, they were ready to auction these guns. I think we felt it was an urgency.
But it didn't take a board action for them to make that decision.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, to Supervisor's point is if the director or the chief can stop that. And I think her question was more on process.
It is.
I know, you're all about, I know.
And because I don't want a no vote on the urgency to be misinterpreted as I don't support the policy. That's what I don't want. But I do think it's a fair question to say, how does one issue become urgent? I appreciate the timeliness of your first one based on the tragedy we experienced. That was outside of our control. This is a county department with a county department head that reports to us. So why a motion that we're just getting versus something else?
All right.
Would be helpful to me.
Let's let county council answer that.
Thank you, Supervisors. And Supervisor Hahn, you did explain it correctly in terms of the first vote being the urgency if someone disagrees that it is urgent and that instead the board should direct its appointee to take another action that you could do that. I think the issue here is it's been posted, the sale on a particular website, it's up now. So that people could be bidding on it now. So I think the urgency was we want to get that, your board would want to get that posting down now in order to, stop the sale immediately. I think that was the reason for bringing the urgency. But again, you are correct. This is a department head that reports to your board. And so if someone disagrees with it being urgent and being needed to take action today, then it doesn't have to go this way, but it could also go this way, and there's nothing incorrect or improper about it being brought the way that it was brought.
I appreciate that. I'll be supporting the motion. I think my question is still on the floor in terms of our process and how we decide.
Agreed. And so that is what her point is. It is administrative. We should stop it. And I have to be honest that if for some reason it doesn't get the urgency motion and it continues to go through, someone's tone deaf.
Well, agreed.
Yeah.
I've just been told that it has been pulled down now. So it's no longer active is what I understand.
Thank you. Thank you. And I also think again, was that just one call from the chair to the chief? Again, we're trying to also take votes on things that we think are important enough that we also, I think, want to send a message collectively as a board. I also believe that's part of the urgency. All right, so this item is before us. Do we need to hear from members of oh no, we haven't taken a vote on the urgency. Right, okay. Colleagues, on this motion 2 regarding the auction of handguns by the probation department, the urgency to vote on it later on whether or not we think it's urgent is before us now. So that item is before us, moved by Supervisor Solis, seconded by me. Executive Officer, please call the roll.
The urgency motion is before you. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Mitchell.
Aye.
Supervisor Mitchell, aye. Supervisor Horvath.
Aye.
Supervisor Horvath, aye. Supervisor Barger.
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, these items not held by supervisors and general public comment. For members of the public on the telephone, please.
We gotta eat, we're hungry.
The public who's signed up. You are in queue.
Muriel, Christine Austria, Donald Harlan, Jayon Baez, Manny Solis, Mike Greenspan, Red Chief Fun, and Robert Lovelace. Please come forward and staff will assist you.
Yes, go ahead. First speaker.
Shit, all those people.
Moderator, we have the first speaker, please.
Our first participant is Brittany Hub. Please go ahead. Brittany Hub, your line's open.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, how you doing? I am fighting tirelessly for my children for 7 years. I filed a Wix 388 petition based on ineffective assistance of counsel, denial due process by CLC and Ladle that were denied. I reported to the commissioner and the judicial misconduct to the presiding judge that was denied. I reported CLC and Ladle lawyers to the state bar for ineffective assistance of counsel and due process and received no response for 4 months. The Capitol refused to file an appeal based on IAC and denial of due process by CLC and Ladle. The entire court system is ripped apart. I and thousands of parents support cancellation of contracts starting with CLC and Ladle. The proposed legislative and the audit as the means to immediately restore the rule of law and due process to the dependency court and to return children around the world. Stop this mass separation. Thank you.
They should go fast.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jesus Christ.
Next we go to the line of Yadi Yumi. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Yadi on number 334 in general comment. Robert Williams, Niger Park, Julie Hudson, and more are people misidentified by the use of facial recognition and wrongfully arrested in jail. You know how devastating it can be for someone to have a record losing their job, difficulty getting employment, or housing, breaking up families, the stigma and trauma. I urge you to stop the use of the digital mugshot system, aka LA Photo Manager, and definitely don't expand it. The use of facial recognition should be banned. It's an ineffective tool that tramples on people's civil liberties. The use of Lavis DMS mass surveillance, where photos and biometrics of general population are added to criminal databases. Aside from getting a court order, the public has essentially no recourse from being removed from this database, even those who are never convicted of a crime. Please stop criminalizing everyday people and stop normalizing surveillance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next, we'll go to the line of Angela Abereg. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm speaking on general public comment. Please release the report that the Director of Animal Care and Control was instructed to create and present to the board back in December following the euthanasia of a puppy in Baldwin Park. This report, most importantly, should include a plan to reduce euthanasia incidences. Please make this an agenda item for the next meeting, and please share these findings with the public. As a reminder, that director is also due to deliver a 5-year plan to decrease the number of and percentage of animals who are euthanized, and that plan is due in March. Please, we're hoping for accountability and follow through here, and we need your help with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next, we'll go to the line of Trent Rosenlieb. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, and good evening. I'm speaking on agenda item number 37. My name is Trent Rosenlieb, representing California Independent Petroleum Association. The county has failed to consider the significant and unmitigated environmental impact of the ordinance in violation of the California Environmental Quality Act. The county has failed to consider the importation of foreign crude that will result in increased greenhouse gas emissions from the tanker ships carrying crude oil to California to replace in-state produced oil. California produces only a fraction of oil that's consumed in the state, requiring over 70% to be imported. Over the past 4 decades, oil production has decreased while demand for oil has significantly increased. The second item on this ordinance is the amortization component as an effort to allow oil operators to recoup some value of their investment. The capital investments are required over the entire life of the oil field, and it is oil properties are not subject to straight line.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next, we'll go to the line of Yolanda Duarte. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi. Good evening.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next, we'll go to the line of Roy. Please go ahead.
Okay, so Supervisors, item 18 listed immigration and sustainability. What was the situation? Where did it go that, hey, immigration is a federal issue and we have nothing to do with that? And by the way, all of you should be reading Losing Control by Jerry Kramer, and also that your counsel probably know that you are prosecutable under the COBRA statutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next, we'll go to the line of Anthony Arena. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anthony